Many years ago, when I started taking photos, I was always looking for some vintage glass that has some character, that also is not too expensive, not too heavy. It's just a good all-rounder. Now, when you look for these things, you eventually land in the Leica M ecosystem. And the Leica M lenses are famously expensive, exquisite in their image quality, and just all around they're amazing. But again, they are very expensive. And I did not have this budget. I do not have this budget. So what did I do? I did not buy a Leica M lens. Instead, I looked for the second best option, which is still, in my opinion, the Voigtlander Nokton 35 1.4 and Voigtlander Nokton 40 1.4. These lenses have almost identical designs optically to the Leica M35mm Summilux steel rim. Now the steel rim is a lens that is incredibly expensive, and for this reason I did not want to get that, obviously. But Nokton has the same image rendering, and you can see this in a blog post down below, and it costs around 400-500 euros, and I was then not sure about which one to get. Should I get the 40mm or should I get the 35mm? At the time I got the 40mm, and many years later now I got also the 35mm, the second version. The 40mm I both sold, and this is now the third time I'm buying it. I had some issues with the body I was using it on, but now I've decided this lens is staying. They have both amazing image quality. It's just that the focal length is a little different. But how much difference does that actually make? Is one of them sharper than the other? Because the 35, the first version, used to be softer than the 40, but now I think with the second iteration that has changed. So in this video I just want to get into these details. I have taken some test photos and I will compare both lenses, so you can decide for yourself whether you would like to buy them or not. And for those of you who are looking for other options like Light Lens Lab or Mr. Ding 35mm 1.8 or 7 Artisans 35 f2, now those are amazing lenses. I'm not saying that any of them are bad, but just this specific lens is amazing because of the optical design. The value proposition is just so high. I don't think any lens can match it anytime soon, and there's a reason why so many people just go out and buy this lens as their starting out lens or their forever lens. And in my situation, I will keep them as my forever lenses, and the reason is just too simple. It has amazing character, great optical image quality, although some people say that it's too soft. I totally disagree with that, and now we will see in the images whether that is true or not. I hope this video can somehow help you, and now we go to the fine details. Okay, there we go. These are the lenses, and don't mind the Beater M5, right? As you can see, they are quite similar in size. The opening pupil of the 40mm is larger, and it's actually quite easy to see that it's larger. In terms of feel, I wouldn't be able to tell you a difference, right? They are in diameter, they are exactly the same almost. The 1.4 40mm is just a little longer because it has to be longer to be 40mm. Other than that, there is not really any difference that I could see after some time of using them both. They're both great in terms of ergonomics, in terms of size, in comparison to a lot of lenses that are similarly fast, they are quite good in terms of size. So I have these as TIFF, and the photos are actually not edited, so just the gamma is pushed higher, so I can see what kind of what the image looks like. Saturation is increased a little. There is no sharpness whatsoever that I have done to these images. It's just as it comes out of the camera. Now when you look at we start with the 1 meter, okay? Actually this is less than 1 meter, this is about 0.8 meters. You can see clearly already in the beginning, we have the center sharp, everything around is kind of not sharp, because it's 1.4 aperture, but the center is actually quite decently sharp. This is the 35 millimeter. And when we compare it to the 40 millimeter, you can see just that we zoomed in a little because we have a different focal length, but we have a very similar sharpness, if not entirely the same. At this aperture, the 40 millimeter looks a little more, a little less contrasty than the 40, than the 35. But I have to say, I'm not really sure if there is much of a difference. At f2 you can see that the edges clean up a little, not in terms of sharpness really, but in terms of vignetting. This is the same with the 40 millimeter, but the 40 millimeter actually does clean up a little better when you look at waveforms in terms of sharpness. At 2.8 the vignetting is kind of gone for both lenses, and at f5.6 you can see just the depth of field is increasing. In terms of sharpness, they're both tack sharp. So when you actually look at this minimum focus distance, I would not say that there's a difference. I think the biggest difference when you're looking at the minimum focus is the zoom. So that 5 millimeter optical difference between 35 and 40 millimeters, that is the main difference here. So we're now about, I think this was 1.5 or 2 meters, so this is a little further away. This is I would say the portrait distance, realistic portrait distance. As you can see, the center is tack sharp, right? When I zoom in, the sensor is 24 megapixels, and the lens, 35 millimeter lens, obviously renders more detail than the sensor. And when I move to the f2, the image cleans up. There is much more contrast, there's much more detail everywhere. In comparison to wide open, it cleans up across the border. At f2.8, again the same thing. The edges are now brighter. At 5.6, it's tack sharp. Depth of field still doesn't cover everything, the coffee machine in this front here, but it's reasonably sharp. I would shoot this on film and I would be okay with it. Now the 40 millimeter, now with 35 millimeter, actually that was the 40 millimeter. As you can see, I'm even having a hard time differentiating between them. Now when going to the 35 millimeter, we zoomed out a little bit. The same deal, yet the 35 millimeter is a bit less sharp at this distance. And it's a lot, actually it's a lot dreamier. This dreaminess, this glow is a lot more obvious with the 35 millimeter at a longer distance. As you can see, at f2 it cleans up, 2.8 it cleans up even more, 5.6 it's very sharp. The coffee machine is also sharp because the wider focal length has more depth of field. And now we're looking at infinity. Now this photo looks terrible because it was clipping. I didn't want to put an ND filter on it. You can see the details at 1.4. It's quite good at infinity. 2 at f2 is quite good again. 2.8, 5.6. There is I would not have any issues shooting anything landscape-ish with this. With the 35mm, the only reason I wouldn't shoot it wide open is because of that sharpness that you lose on the edges, and also the vignetting. Looking at the 41.4, we have the same story, cleans up, continues cleaning up, and at f5.6 it's tack sharp. If you're using this lens, even at f2.8, you will not have any sharpness issues, in my opinion. If you do want the character, just open it up to 1.4. Super simple. Now we're continuing with, I wanted to see how the background, the bokeh looks like. And this is the 40mm. As you can see, I think it's still clipping because it's too bright in the back. The bokeh is busy. It's not entirely clean, but it looks very nice actually when you edit a photo, or when you take a photo intentionally with this. I do like how it looks. At f2 you can see that bokeh changes a little bit. It's not as busy anymore. That sharp edges are gone. At f2.8 it's clean, it's smooth. I wouldn't have any issues in terms of bokeh at f2.8. There's still great separation. And then 5.6. And now we're looking at the 35. The 35 has a bit more, maybe a bit more sharp edges on that bokeh. At f2 it cleans up again similarly. 2.8, 5.6. Let's look at the sharpness difference, or if there is a difference. When I zoom in, I honestly cannot see any difference in sharpness with both these lenses. Perhaps like the 35 is a teeny tiny bit softer, yet that's such a terrible argument to choose which lens to buy, because in my opinion the bigger difference here is the focal length. If you're a person that chooses 50mm mostly, but still want something, I don't know, just a little bit wider maybe, I would go with the 40. And the 40 I have had for many years. This is the third iteration of that, and I have to say it's just so decent. And I have the single coat version. I honestly, between the single coat and the multi-coat, etc., that's just, I don't find that to be a relevant thing anymore with digital cameras especially. I just found the single coat version, that's why I got it. And yeah, in my opinion, both of these lenses are exceptional. So the biggest question here is, first, do you have the money? The 40mm is cheaper. So if you don't have that much money, I honestly would recommend the 40mm over the 35, because what you get for the money you pay is quite similar, if not entirely the same thing. And the 35 just costs a little more. And both of these lenses you can get second-hand because they are so popular. There's also a large second-hand market for them. I personally got them, the 35 I got second-hand, and the 40mm I got new. I think I have paid in total for these lenses 700 euros. And honestly, they render beautifully. They are built like a tank, perhaps even better than some cameras of Leica. And honestly, I would without a doubt go get them again if something happened to them, and not the modern spherical Noktons, etc. It's just a personal it's a question of personal preference, obviously. If you would like to test them, you should go check out at a camera shop. If you are living in Vienna, Austria, and would like to test them, down below I will link the Photo Walk Instagram account that we organize monthly, and you can come and test these lenses for free. I often bring them with me, and if you DM me, I will just bring it and you can test it and you can decide for yourself. Thanks for watching. I hope this helped a little with your decision, and have fun shooting.